Today, I'm going to be diving into different editing tricks used by editor Sally Menke to create suspense in the opening scene of Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds, a film released in 2009. The movie takes place in France during World War II and highlights the activities of a team of Jewish soldiers, the Inglourious Basterds, as they ravage through France getting revenge on their Nazi oppressors. Although suspense and emotion flow heavily throughout the course of the film, the opening sequence sets a precedent for the remainder of the movie. The ideas of American film theorist David Bordwell contribute heavily to the suspense built throughout this opening scene. Bordwell's ideas highlight how the editor's manipulation of time is one of the key factors for sculpting stories for viewers that he believes are active. We're constantly reading cues in the film to draw inferences in accordance with prior knowledge of the topic. In his eyes, the editor holds a significant amount of power over the source material with increased coverage on set. The editor can create virtually any situation and craft the story into any chronological order and at what speed he or she prefers. The opening scene begins with a deductive approach by using an establishing shot of a man and his daughter working on a dairy farm. The family's work is abruptly interrupted as the daughter, Julie, hears cars approaching in the distance as dramatic music ensues. The father instantly commands his daughter's return to the house and for Julie to help him clean up before the vehicles arrive. The way Menke edits the sequence in which the cars are approaching the farm adheres to Bordwell's idea of narrative duration increasing the storytelling effectiveness to viewers. There is roughly a minute and a half between when the family first sees the vehicles and when they finally arrive on the property. Judging by the distance from these approaching vehicles and their apparent speed, it should have taken roughly 15 seconds for them to arrive. Instead, the film is edited in a way that drastically increases the narrative length of the sequence and utilizes different cutaways and dialogue to keep the viewer thinking and uneasy about what is about to happen. The constant ominous tone of the character's performance and audio of the film have already begun to build suspense in the viewer. Upon the car's arrival, a man named Colonel Hans Landa introduces himself to the father, revealed as Pierre La Petite. Although viewers could have used prior knowledge to infer that the approaching vehicles were Nazis, having known the setting of the film, their suspicions would now be confirmed. The active viewer now shifts gears and begins to wonder what the point of his visit is. As the colonel enters the house and introduces himself to the remainder of the family, it is clear to the viewer that everyone is extremely uncomfortable with the visit, despite the colonel being nothing but polite up until this point. That feeling is captured in this shot, as it holds for nearly 4 seconds, despite having no motion or dialogue. As the scene progresses and the colonel begins to question La Petite about his knowledge of the Jews from the area, the viewer's prior inferences are verified that he is here with ill intent towards the Jews. At the beginning of the conversation, there is little lingering suspense as La Petite starts by questioning the reason for the visit, referencing how German soldiers had already confirmed that they were not sheltering enemies of the state. When La Petite is asked about the whereabouts of the Dreyfuses, 3 consecutive shots of the father are used, each a bit closer than the previous. Although these cuts violate the 30-degree rule, Walter Murch, who has worked very closely with Francis Ford Coppola, would argue that these cuts would be fine because preserving the emotion of the scene is vastly more important than respecting planarity of the scene. In this case, getting a closer look at La Petite helps progress the story and preserves emotion throughout. Although suspense has remained constant and the audience may have been at ease due to the lack of severe tension, this all changes around 10 minutes into the scene, with multiple shots of people hidden underneath the floorboards within the home. Here is where another major inference makes an appearance. At this point, there is no way for the viewer to know who exactly is being hidden, but it is assumed to be the family in question, the Dreyfuses. The editor makes the conscious choice to hold on shots of the hidden family for nearly 20 seconds, despite the conversation about this family still taking place directly above. The climax of the scene happens after a bit more congenial conversation between La Petite and Colonel Hans Landa. The colonel quickly turns from his polite temperament into a hostile one. The following sequence is full of close-up shots that very slowly zoom in, letting the viewer infer through facial expressions that both Colonel Hans Landa knows that the Jews are being hidden here and that La Petite is simultaneously aware that the colonel knows. This leads to the direct accusation from the colonel as he says,
"You are sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?"
Yes.
You're sheltering them underneath your floorboards, aren't you?
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
As La Petite confesses to hiding enemies of the state, everyone, including the audience, is now on the same page. Menke then uses music with a gradual crescendo in alignment with the colonel summoning his men to increase the tension of the scene, ultimately leading to the finding of the hidden family and their violent demise brought onto them by the German soldiers. As one of the hidden members of the family manages to escape, the colonel sees her running away and exclaims, "Au revoir, Shoshana!" confirming the audience's prior suspicion that the hidden family was in fact the very family that Colonel Hans Landa was searching for. This scene is an example of how utilizing different editing techniques, such as time manipulation and inference-based storytelling, can enhance the quality of the finished product in unique ways. In the case of Inglourious Basterds, these ideas contribute to the suspense of the film's opening sequence, resulting in a scene that will have a lasting effect on its viewers.